Phnom Penh, capital of Cambodia, where a crime against children is being carried out under the guise of orphanage tourism. It's a business that Australians are helping to flourish, unwittingly. I came here to investigate and ended up in way over my head. Take a look around and you'll see everyday Australians. But which ones are leading extraordinary lives in hidden worlds? Worlds a million miles away from yours. I'm Sabur Bradley and I'm going to take you inside those worlds. And the only way to do that is to dive in head first. The minute you arrive in Phnom Penh as a tourist, they're giving you options. Sightseeing, history tours, shooting ranges, sex tourism, and orphans. Orphanage tourism is popular amongst visitors to Cambodia, including many Australians. But what most tourists don't know is that around 75% of children in Cambodian orphanages have a parent or parents. But why would children who have parents need to be in orphanages? And how can Australians be contributing in any way to them being there?
I want to infiltrate that world, but it's going to be dangerous because even shooting in this street could draw me unwanted attention or get me arrested.
It's not just that child exploitation is illegal in Cambodia, it's the scale of what's happening that makes it so sensitive. And that's why I can't interview police or government officials in case they try to shut me down. There are quite a few elements to orphanage tourism. Here's how I understand it. Imagine an orphanage as a shop, and the orphans are the attraction in the shop window. What customers do they get? Day tourists, volunteer tourists, and donors, many of whom genuinely want to help. But there is a fourth type, sex tourists, and they could be anyone who has contact with the kids. They all give lots of money in different ways, and it goes to someone, but not the kids. Pretty soon more tourists come, but one orphanage isn't enough to handle the demand. So, more orphanages pop up. There's only one problem. They need more product, hence more orphans. That's where the broker comes in. The broker's job is to go out and get the product from the source, the parents. Often the broker targets the rural areas, where extreme poverty means 90% of people live on less than $1 a day, and education is rare. The broker convinces the parents to sell their child, or rent their child, or give their child away with the promise of a better life. And it works. And despite the major child protection organisations in Cambodia, Friends International and UNICEF urging people not to do it, they come in greater numbers, and it's their demand that fuels supply. Business booms, and pretty soon lots of people are making money, except the children. Orphanage tourism has become an industry, part of the national economy, funded by well-intentioned tourists, especially Australians. There's been a 15% increase in Aussie tourists in the last 2 years. I've signed up to some of the tours to go undercover, but I'm not due to start officially for a couple of days yet, so tomorrow I'm going to go meet this Australian guy who is fighting the problem head on. SISHA stands for Southeast Asia Investigations into Social and Humanitarian Activities.
Steve here?
Basically, it's an NGO that hunts down people who exploit kids. And this is the guy who founded it, Steve Morrish, an ex-detective from Melbourne.
First time to Cambodia?
Yeah.
How you found it?
He came to Cambodia on holiday in 2004, saw the scale of the problem and decided to do something about it.
Oh, you're an Eagles fan? I won't hold that against you.
No. I'm also the president of the Cambodian Eagles Football Club here.
Oh, this is the
That's
Cambodian.
our new jumper.
They're called the Cambodian Eagles, and Steve formed them as part of an Asia-wide Aussie rules competition.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you seem like the kind of guy who takes like small, humble beginnings, sees an opportunity and builds it up into something big.
Contrary to opinion, expat living, it's not as glorified as people think. You need something extra to your work to try and build a community. So footy club's a perfect example of that.
And SISHA is a perfect example of working with the community on each aspect of a crime against children.
Also, we investigate anything from human trafficking to pedophilia, rape, sexual abuse, any exploitation crime, we'll investigate that. Unfortunately, we don't have a judicial power, so we can't just go and do an arrest or anything ourselves. We need the police to be able to do that formality.
The Cambodian police force is underpaid and undertrained and often refer many cases to SISHA.
Right, yeah.
And are these guys trained detectives?
No, just guys that I've hired and we've just trained them up.
So you've got 4 investigators?
4 at the moment.
And how many cases would come in each day?
There's 2 boards at the moment.
Wow.
So it could be anywhere from underage brothel, recruitment agencies, missing girls.
You've got their orphanage trafficking
Yeah.
and abuse.
The orphanage is what we're investigating. Children have been sold somewhere from the orphanage.
Each one of these lines here is a
Is a new case.
And those are active.
Active cases, yeah.
And these are also active.
Active cases, yeah.
How many other organisations in Cambodia are there like yours? Like
5.
It's no wonder the Cambodian police are overwhelmed.
But you're kind of like the second line of police in Cambodia.
Yeah, so we're a pseudo police, if you like, put it that way. They can trust us. And then we go to the police and work with them and get the results.
After the investigations team has rescued children from abuse, it's the aftercare team that look after them.
Wow, this is 2 people dealing with all these
I've got
cases.
another girl somewhere. They'll continue to liaise with the families to keep them updated as to what's happening with the legal department, because we want these people to go to court.
Speaking of court, SISHA's legal team.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Let's reduce
How many cases do you have?
more than 100.
So you've got 60 investigations, you've got more than 100 and something aftercare cases,
Yep.
and more than
And
100 court cases
coming
coming up at the moment.
Yep.
And each department's got like 3 or 4 people in it.
That's only today, so more cases coming today. It just keeps the gates keep rolling and rolling.
Steve takes me out to see just how big the market for children is. Many sex workers in Cambodia are underage kids brought in by the same brokers who deal in orphans.
You've got these joints here that are open, and the police know they're there and don't do anything, so it's all big money.
He's talking about bribes and corruption. The lack of regulation seems overwhelming.
So does that lack of regulation applies to the orphanages?
So a Cambodian says, I want to start an orphanage, and they get the documents done, the Ministry of Interior signs it, and that's it. There's no other accountability.
Well, why is there no accountability?
When people are getting paid such little bit of money, who's going to be proactive to go and do it? The bosses don't care. All they're worried about is get money put in their pockets.
So the people who are setting up orphanages are paying for the right to do that,
Yeah.
right?
Steve says there's a new case coming that he might need me to go undercover on. But before that happens, he says I need to understand this whole thing from the perspective of the kids. To do that, I'm heading to one of the hotbeds of orphanage tourism in Cambodia, Siem Reap. It's the gateway to the Angkor temples, the most popular tourist attraction in the country. As the number of tourists has grown over the last few years, so have the number of orphanages and the offerings they provide.
That's their time.
I'm going undercover to sample some of them, starting as a day tourist.
I'm going into a completely uncontrolled situation, which means that I need to be on high alert at all times. But I won't be alone. I've got Cole, the director, with me. Hey, Cole, how you doing?
Here he is. Felt better. All good? You ready? You ready for this?
And not only that, we've got an array of undercover cameras to take with us. We've got the button camera right here. We've got the pen camera, which looks like this, and it actually writes. We've got a mobile phone. We've got the watch camera right here on Cole. That's actually the camera. You ready to go in?
Sure. You good?
I'm good. Let's do it. Let's do it.
The first orphanage's gate is wide open. We walk straight in.
Hi.
What's your name?
Sabur.
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 Be nice to meet you.
You have volunteers here?
Yes.
They're here? Godmother.
Godmother.
Can you take me to your godmother? Yeah?
Godmother.
Hi, how are you? I'm Sabur.
Where are you from?
Australia.
Australia.
Yeah.
How do you know my name?
I don't know your name. They said you were the godmother.
Within minutes, the godmother has me giving a donation of $10.
You want to spend some time with the kids?
Sure.
And without looking at any ID or a police check, I'm allowed unfettered access to kids. In what childcare place or school in Australia would you be able to walk in without identification and interact with kids? You wouldn't. You'd be arrested. In Cambodia, caregivers are responsible by law for protecting each child against exploitation or abuse. Allowing people to enter without ID or police checks and then leaving them alone with the kids clearly contravenes that.
How many people are here to you?
27 children.
27 children. Do you have parents?
Yeah.
Yeah, where are your parents?
In my village. And I have one sister and one brother.
How long do you stay here then?
6 months ago, one she has the money, she will come to see me, to play with me, sleep here maybe 2 nights or 3 nights.
I'd like to stay longer, but our driver is calling us.
Bye, nice to meet you.
Bye. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
It's that easy, huh?
We're late for a show at the next orphanage.
Hello. How are you?
Fine.
Hello.
Once again, we walk in without any ID checks.
How many children altogether?
We have 30 children.
How many shows do you do every day?
Only we have a tour.
Two.
Are you doing a performance tonight? A show?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Now? Oh, some tourists coming to our laps. Good show.
A tour bus pulls up and the majority of them are Australian. They're allowed to walk in without ID or police checks. They're quickly seated to watch the kids dance. Then they're moved swiftly into buying paintings that are allegedly made by the kids. There's 30-odd tourists, so plenty of money is changing hands. And while this is happening, they're encouraged to roam throughout the orphanage.
Where do you eat? Where do people eat? Around here. But that's not enough for all of you.
I take the opportunity to quiz the kids.
And how many times do you do this each day, with dancing?
2 times.
And are your parents, your mother and father, still alive?
They're still alive, but my father, he gets one more bite.
And what about you? Your mother and father are still alive? What work does your father do?
Army.
What about yours?
My father, farm. Again?
Why do you live here?
Because in here it's easy to learn English. And find job.
What job do you do?
I'm a student now.
You're a student. And you?
I'm just a student.
You're a student. But you're looking for a job?
I'm getting a sense that some of the kids' families are using the orphanages just as much as the other way round.
We have to go.
But what about the Australians here today? Do they know what's happening? And how would they react if told? I'm going to find out because after hastily befriending 4 tourists from Melbourne, they agree to meet me at a cafe later on tonight. And I'll be bringing along a surprise guest. As we head for our final orphanage, we pass the one we went to in the morning, and this happens.
Don't take me.
Yes.
Are
you the owner?
No, I'm from Canada. I just come here.
You just came out. You're a volunteer?
No.
How much do you have to pay?
Nothing. You just have to give them love and hug them, and you want to make any little bit of donation, $2.
Yeah. Oh, we already made a donation.
To them?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
So you've done your one. This is the next one.
Yeah, right.
Okay, thank you.
The lack of checks and balances is shocking. I'm going to find out more about the volunteering side later on. My third and final orphanage is clearly popular with Australians.
From 2008 to 2012, more than 300 volunteers have come through, many of them from Australia.
It has a level of sophistication that's breathtaking.
Plan to build a future and orphanage for more children.
They're building a new orphanage 70k from here, and every step of the tour details how much each part of that new orphanage costs and how you donate the money. The dance show is highly elaborate as well. But I've seen enough. I need to get out.
You know, the thing that was really hammered home to me today was just how much of a business this is. It's the orphan business, the orphan industry, and they're trading in children. And I was feeling all these different emotions watching it, you know, anger, disgust. But the thing that I was left with was this tired kind of sadness, because this thing has been allowed to get so big, and it seems like it's only going to get bigger and bigger.
I wonder how other people feel about it, like the Australian tourists I met earlier today. I've invited them to this cafe to have a chat. This lady is a retiree. John is a doctor, Norma's a nurse, and Lorraine is a former state politician. All are from Melbourne.
So this is Steve Morris. This is Lucifer.
Steve explains what he's doing with SISHA.
The orphanage industry has grown and it's become a serious problem here that people can...
But interestingly, after he reveals the truth...
These Khmer people who are running these businesses are putting the money in their pockets and they're not putting it to the children, so...
Their reaction isn't as clear-cut as I expected.
So one thing that didn't seem to add up to me, what you've said, is that the small amount of money that they were getting, it didn't seem to be worthwhile.
Yeah. How many people were in the tour today?
30.
I spent 20. I bought a painting.
I spent 8.
They were $35, $55, some of them.
Exactly. Now, if all 30 bought, you're talking about potentially over $500 just for that tour.
Twice a day.
Massive money. Most Australians, we've got good hearts, we want to help people. You come in there and you, the worst case scenario, give money. It doesn't directly go to the children. It goes in the pocket of the director of the orphanage.
Why would it be on an itinerary from a travel company?
That'd be something for me to investigate, and questions need to be asked if travel centres that are organising a tour to go and see children.
The tide is starting to turn, but I know what people are thinking. How could parents give away their kids?
I thought they would have been a very family-orientated group of people.
Yeah, you've got to appreciate the dynamics of these people. Most of them living on less than $1 a day. And you get these people come in and say, we can take care of your children, we'll give them education, they'll be able to pull money back to the family when they get a job. Yep, you're going to give your child off. I say the basic standards need to be, if a centre here that's got children allow you to walk in off the street, that's bad.
I think it was worth Steve making the trip. There's a new understanding amongst them.
You're right in saying you suspend what would be normal at home in Australia when you're in another country and you think, oh, this is a poor country, so it's good there's children are getting this. But you're right.
The undercover operation Steve needs me for back in the capital city is almost in place. I return to Phnom Penh to wait. But while I do, there's one more customer in the orphanage tourism shop I need to investigate. Volunteer tourists. So many people want to come to Cambodia to volunteer in orphanages, they're now known as voluntourists. They pay to spend a few weeks giving time, money, and love. And then when they leave, the child is often emotionally traumatized. Massive companies have sprung up outside and inside Cambodia to facilitate voluntourism, and apparently they're raking it in. I've signed up with a locally run organisation that houses voluntourists from around the world. I'm going undercover to find out if the allegations against these places are true. Most of the international companies dealing in voluntourism are middlemen. They collect your money online and send you to a place like this. This guy is one of the company's administrators. He takes us to our room where we meet our first voluntourist. And he's Australian.
Yeah, hi Tom, how are you doing? You get to... Hey Tom, how you doing? That's great, mate. Great to meet you. Welcome to the crew. Thanks, man. You just got here, huh?
I got here last Friday a week ago.
Oh, I guess you've been here a while.
Yeah. For 5 weeks, it's cost me $1,200 US. Most of it goes to food and accommodation, and then the middleman takes a bit of it. There's some people who paid like $2,000 US for the same thing.
Cole and I signed up for $200 registration and then $760 for 2 weeks of volunteering.
All the different organisations are just middlemen, and some places are like 2 middlemen in between.
So they're just kicking back to each other and they make all the money?
Yeah. Crazy.
Tom seems like a genuine guy wanting to give back, but he's already identified that the network set up to help him do that seems corrupted by money.
So I've only been here a few minutes, and the first foreigner that I talked to properly is already complaining about the amount of money that they had to spend through a middleman to get here. And it's not the same middleman as I've used, but a different one, because apparently there are lots the same. It is not a good start. We'll see what happens tomorrow.
The other worrying thing about companies selling voluntourism is the lack of police checks on hundreds of people who have direct contact with children.
Let's go eat.
I was asked to bring a police check with me to Cambodia, but I still haven't been asked to produce it. The lack of accountability doesn't seem to end there.
But right now I'm functioning as the doctor because...
You're functioning as the doctor?
Yeah.
This is a Danish volunteer talking about the orphanage that she's serving at.
But I'm not studying medicine, but she has just told me all the basic stuff.
Who has?
The doctor there. And you always call her.
Why isn't she functioning as the doctor?
Because there's like a lot of visitors.
Meanwhile, a 19-year-old Australian tells me there's an overabundance of volunteer teachers at other orphanages.
And there was like 5 in class, so it's like what? There's always like that person that's kind of just hanging on them. So you like can't look around at the kids and like, oh, good work, you know.
There's more volunteer teachers than kids.
That's how it felt.
The middleman companies receive money from every volunteer sent, whether there's a need for them or not.
It's quite an industry, you said? Yeah.
It's time to talk with someone from inside that industry.
Hey, man. Thank you.
This is the administrator who took me to my room yesterday. He's supposed to inform me where I'm volunteering, but I want some other answers first.
Because lots of people downstairs are confused because their organisations have sent them here. Some of them say they have orphanages, some say they don't. It's all over the place. And
you know, Cambodia, it works different from Western countries, sometimes really unorganized. With the local organizations and the communication, we have lots of problems sometimes.
But these organisations keep on bringing them across.
Yeah, sure, because they get money through this.
They get money, of course.
Money generation. We pay them to place volunteers, and other organizations pay them too.
Whether the middleman is a company or a well-intentioned NGO, they're still facilitating a practice that the major child protection agencies in Cambodia have called on to end.
Yeah.
Hello, how are you?
Another admin guy arrives and our man changes the subject. Clearly, he's not allowed to talk about it.
Thanks.
I can give you my number.
Yeah, cool.
I've heard enough. It's time to leave.
From the minute that I arrived until the minute that I left, you had volunteers complaining about everything. It's just endless. And there you had one of the main guys telling us that these middlemen, these organisations, are actually big corporations, big companies, raising revenue, doing it for the money.
There's another reason for leaving. The case that Steve Morris and SISHA wanted me to go undercover on has now started. It involves a group of kids who are missing somewhere in this city.
Tell me about your information that you've got. What's happening with this?
I know that he's got another orphanage, but apparently the government doesn't know where it is.
Lucille is a French doctor. She's alleging the director of an orphanage that SISHA and the Cambodian Interior Ministry shut down a year ago for abusing kids is now trying to set up a new orphanage.
How do we suspect that he's got another orphanage? Who's told you that?
I know from one of the kids in my shelter, because he used to be in the other orphanage before, but he didn't tell me where is the other orphanage.
After SISHA and the police rescued the kids, they were put in the care of another organisation which helps repatriate so-called orphans with their families.
And so they went back to their community, living with their grandmother.
The former director's name is Rithi, and he's apparently gone back to those families and taken the kids away again.
So he takes them back and he's using them for orphanage tourism. Is he getting money from them? How?
I think he's getting money from missionaries.
How is it possible that missionaries are allowed to give him money?
They don't know about it.
But they don't check.
No, they wouldn't know.
Even his old donor never knows that the government going to close that until we let them know. They are calling people, I think.
This case is a good example of why SISHA does the job of the police in Cambodia, because they wouldn't have the time, resources or ability to investigate.
The fact that he's trying to open up another orphanage, and it's not going to happen.
But the former director Rithi is willing to take the risk because of the money he could get from the third type of customer at the orphanage tourism shop. The donors. They send money from all parts of the world. They could be individuals, families, charities, or religious groups. And while the money is sent with the best of intentions, they often don't know anything about the orphanages it's funding. Which means kids like these once again become valuable commodities. This is the raid in which the children were rescued from the orphanage a year ago. The majority of them have parents. The children were allegedly locked up in the building, chained to beds, and fed only vinegar. 3 of the children were siblings, and Lucille says the orphanage director Rithi knows the family, and that's how he got them back so easily. The eldest brother is 13, his sister is 12, their little brother 10.
They've lost the meaning of what we're all trying to do here. We're trying to protect kids.
The organisation that took care of the kids after the raid has Australians in its administration.
Call the staff now.
And they've blocked SISHA's attempt to get info.
We're not going to be dictated to by an organisation that's released children back into the hands of a person who abused children. You wouldn't get away with that in Australia. You'd be in jail. But these people come here and think they can just do what they like. It's a dog's breakfast. Hello, I'm Moby SISHA, I'm CEO SISHA, Mr. Stephen. Sayon's told me that you guys have reintegrated all the children back with the families, and now they've ended back up with this CHA director. So can you shed some light on it for me? Yep. It's not something that we can wait on because we've had the allegation now 3 days. Could you please get back to me as soon as you can on that? And she's saying that the French lady is trying to get the children back into her centre, which doesn't make sense. So all of a sudden it's passing the buck around while we might have children with some monster. We've just got to deal with fact.
And that's what the investigation team is doing, checking all the online clues for Rithi, the former orphanage director.
There you go, CHA. Yeah, it is. Yeah. But that's him. Yep. That's him there. Yeah. That's him. Yep.
Peck is searching for anything that'd show where he's taken the kids this time. This is Rithi.
So on his Facebook page, was there any mention of a new orphanage?
All feature in our place, but some feature not in our place.
Okay.
It's close to the old place.
It's close? Yeah. Okay. You're both going out on the bikes?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going out to look for an orphanage that Peck believes Rithi may have taken the kids to. This is the same director that was taken down by SISHA like a year ago, and now he's back out there getting kids and taking them into a new orphanage. The orphanage under surveillance is known to Peck and SISHA, but it's never been under suspicion before. Peck has gone over there to do some surveillance, and he's got his helmet on to protect his identity. We're waiting to see if Rithi leaves at the end of the day with the other workers.
Yeah.
There's still no sighting of our man. We make a pass of the orphanage, then head off back to SISHA. There's been a lot to take in, but there's one thing I haven't come to grips with yet.
A lot of Australians just couldn't understand that concept of just giving your child away.
I have no sympathy or mercy for anyone who wants to give their child away. On the other, more compassionate side, I suppose, and I don't fully understand what would go through someone's mind when they are destitute and have nothing.
Say, are there Cambodians who do give their children away?
I think that for some people that give the children away to get that things is impossible. Always they have reasons.
Steve won't accept that though.
You've just got to look at the history of Cambodia. Have a look at the Pol Pot regime, and people would say to you, it was a one-off, one person just went crazy, and you look at the violence from Cambodian on Cambodian, and you look at the way that they sell people, you have to ask yourself a question. Is there something hidden inside their culture that other cultures may not have?
What do you think the effect of Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge?
It's the first man things that left everything today. And another thing is the influx of foreign culture as well.
But Steve is saying it's something inside Cambodians that makes them so violent.
Here is a developing country. And they said that because of the lack of education.
How can you stand to stay in a country that you believe has a higher propensity towards evil?
Because I still believe that there's still a greater component of a beautiful country than the negative part.
I don't think Seon's happy about what he just heard. I'd like to ask him more about what Steve said, whether Cambodian culture has something in it that makes them more violent. But it's not the right time.
See you Monday.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Cambodians are more prone to evil than other people in the world. Although Steve really seems to think so.
There's no doubt that Cambodia has an issue with the way they treat children, but what's causing that? It seems Seon wants to help me work that out, because over the weekend he calls and asks me to meet him at a particular address. When I turn up, he's got a surprise. All four of the investigation team have come along. They all felt I needed to see this place to understand why Cambodia has such massive problems. It's the Genocide Museum. In 1975, Cambodia was ruled by a communist regime known as the Khmer Rouge, led by a prime minister called Pol Pot, who would later come to be known as the Hitler of Cambodia. The Khmer Rouge wanted to create a new society based around agriculture. To do this, they tried to relocate the population from urban centres to the countryside. They also attempted to purify Cambodia along racial, social, religious, and political lines.
So all the dark spots on the ground around here is all blood?
The Khmer they were tortured, they were beaten here.
Many people were brought to this prison known as S21, interrogated, tortured, and transported to outlying areas to be executed. mass graves were found across the country and became known as the killing fields. The Khmer Rouge were overthrown by the Vietnamese in 1979, but during their rule, massacred more than 1.5 million people, 25% of the population.
It's pretty horrific. You know what, I can't help but think that this sort of thing isn't just restricted to Cambodia.
The world has seen similar genocides before in Rwanda, Bosnia, Germany, but the question Steve asked was, is it something specific to the Cambodian culture? Well, Cambodia was a Buddhist country until the Khmer Rouge came along and rejected not only that moral compass, but all ties to the past and cultural traditions. Anyone who kept a hold on those things was an enemy of the state to be executed. When you kill off a generation of military, industrial, religious, and political leaders, journalists, students, doctors, lawyers, and academics, can you really overcome that vacuum in the space of only 30 years? Steve's invited me to his house for a barbecue, and I'm hoping it's a chance for me to get to know the man behind the tough exterior.
Hey, how you doing?
Welcome to the house, mate.
Thank you.
This is the Sunday de-stress, relaxing day barbecue.
De-stressing seems to be a common theme for Steve.
I have times when I go and punch out my 10K runs and I'm a steaming volcano. I'm not trying to be a Superman, not trying to be He-Man. I'm certainly not that. I have got an emotional side. Very few people get to see it.
Who gets to see it?
Maybe my mum, I suppose. My dad, that's probably about it.
Speaking of his mum and dad, Steve's decision to move here when he'd established a career as a detective in Melbourne was not one they approved of.
My career was ahead of me, and for me to throw it in overnight, my family didn't understand the drive.
And you weren't worried about that?
My juice, I suppose, is when I see a person who's exploited a child here going to spend 15 years jail in a Cambodian prison cell.
I feel like I'm still getting the He-Man side of Steve. Hopefully his wife Shuli can help with that.
Hello, how are you? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
The two of them have just had their first child, Isabella, after adopting another 8-year-old orphan, Thierry.
We actually met on the internet on a friend's site, and I started stalking her, basically saying, "Hi, I'm Steve, I live in Cambodia." Yeah, I'd love to meet you.
Never replied to him.
I think Shuli basically gave in the end.
What's the most difficult thing about being with an Australian?
Sometimes he doesn't accept our culture, but also I'm happy because when you marry to the Westerner, you have freedom. When married to Cambodian, you be home cooking and be a slave to the husband.
Look what you've got here.
Yeah.
The man cooking.
He never let me do the barbie.
Well, that's a very Australian thing.
It's an Australian rule.
Yeah.
He said, Morris family never let women do the barbie.
Freedom is one thing, but I wonder if she feels he puts their family in danger because of his work.
Sometimes I told him, stop doing it. Stop helping.
Yeah, sometimes
I can see him very stressful. In Cambodia, people can kill people very easy. Sometimes I'm very worried about family safety because of his job.
Is your family under threat?
The potential any time if you're a policeman or doing the work we do, someone's not going to be happy with what you're doing.
That's right.
If my family ever become jeopardised, I wouldn't just give up doing SISHA. There'd be other repercussions if people intimidated my family.
For them?
Yes. I am a big believer of the schoolyard bully syndrome, where a bully will pick on people weaker than them until someone goes bang and hits the bully in the mouth. And all of a sudden the bully's been exposed for who they are, very, very much a coward. So what I am, what SISHA is where that person who goes whack and hits the bully.
It's starting to make sense to me now that a guy who spends most of his time working with the darkest forces in this or any society might start to think the darkness is a Cambodian thing. What's really impressive about Steve is that he hasn't run away. He's moved here, he's married into the culture, and he refuses to let the bully win. Steve's asked me to have another go at trying to work out whether the former director Rithi is keeping the kids at the orphanage we did surveillance on the other day.
Just pull in a bit of this guessing game a little bit. Get some facts in.
Brilliant.
Okay. All right, excellent.
I'll go do that. Cole and I are posing as day tourists.
Hello. How are you? We're just going to the orphanages to play with the kids and hand out sweets.
Give some donations. We're from Australia.
Do you have a
Document? No.
Yeah, of course, no problem.
That's the first orphanage to ask us for documents. And it's the first orphanage to have a gate that's locked too.
It's evidence there are legitimate orphanages in Cambodia putting the safety of their children first.
You ask permission first to come here or not?
No, we're just going to the different orphanages in the area.
Is here have a law if people want to come and join with the children?
Okay.
Must be ask permission first.
But suddenly I realised we don't need to go inside to find out if Rithi works here.
What was your name again? Moran.
If Rithi has been here, the doorman will know.
So I was saying, do you know our friend Rich? Yeah. Before you have registered that. He's at house close. Yeah, now close. Okay. Do you know his phone number? Because I need to. Come on. Yeah.
At least we know he's not at this orphanage. But we still don't have an address or a phone number. Or so I think.
I've just done a quick Google search and his email address is there and 3 phone numbers. So I'll get you to ring it.
Cool.
Just say when you visited last year for a day and you've come back now, can I come and see you or whatever?
Okay, the first one's disconnected.
Turned off?
Yeah. Hi, is that Rithi? Oh, hi Rithi. I'm not sure if you remember me. My name's Brad, I'm from Australia. And I met you at the orphanage last year. Yeah, I came to volunteer for a day. Do you remember the big Australian? Ha! You don't remember? I'm back in Phnom Penh and I went to the orphanage just yesterday. Oh, it is closed down. I bought some donations to give to the children. So, do you know of any other orphanage that I can go to? Well, I'm free, so anytime that you want. Tomorrow? Well, I can get my tuk-tuk driver he can take the address down.
He wants to meet tomorrow afternoon.
Near the Russian markets? Okay, thanks, Rithi. Look forward to seeing you. Bye.
Okay. How's the heart going?
Yeah, good. It is getting serious now. This guy has been done over a year ago, so he's going to be wary. He knows about surveillance. He knows about SISHA. You know, he's been taken in before, so this isn't going to be easy. And I'm nervous. I'm nervous. But when I look at the pictures of the kids, then I remember exactly what it is that we're doing this for. And that makes it a lot easier.
Doing all this undercover work is draining. I'm wondering how Steve deals with it.
G'day, mate. How are you
Hey,
doing?
how you doing?
Sorry, mate. Just typing out an email. 1 second.
SISHA's got a funding crisis at the moment, and Steve has got an important meeting tomorrow night to deal with it, which means he won't be part of the team back at HQ, and that makes me nervous.
My experience with the undercover stuff so far, it's just like you're charged and then you do another one and you don't get what you want. It's even worse than kind of depression.
But obviously, police officers see things that most normal people don't get to see. The number of young girls and children that come into this office who have either been raped or sexually abused, and there's this blank look on their face, they've thrown in the towel. So the thing that keeps me going is that when my aftercare teams and my legal teams put the offenders in jail and the kids go back with the families and you see a little smile come back on the child that's actually been abused and the lights come back on, that's what keeps me going.
Why do you think that you can deal with it?
I think I'm a policeman.
It's just something inside us, a need to help or to do something that other people won't do. I don't know what it is.
Do you ever get them in your dreams?
Yeah, no, I don't get them in dreams. I think my mechanism to deal with the emotions is to not take them inside of me emotionally.
So there's not one child that you remember?
No, there's one child who I remember. And it's probably one that I've actually had to close the door in the office and I got the chin quivers. And that's pretty hard for me to do. I don't cry, kind of thing.
Why did you cry?
Oh, I still think about it now and it takes my breath away. She was walking down the back track to collect some rice for her family and some animals dragged her off the track and raped her and cut her throat and threw her in the pond, and when she was still moving, he smashed a rock on her head. What fear that girl would have gone through. Her screaming for help and no one coming. Being powerless. I don't know, mate. I think it plays on all the things that make me hate people who abuse women and children. I don't know. Yeah. Even now it chokes me out, mate. It's not good. Yeah. There's so many women and children out there, especially the children who are screaming for help and no one's coming. And they're, the only person that's going to come is Steve Morris. That's it. Yeah.
It's the day of the big operation. I'm 30 minutes from a face-to-face meeting with the ex-orphanage director, Rithi.
Let's play it safe tonight. Let's go 2 motorbikes, okay?
Steve is doing final checks.
Beck, you'll be at one end of the street watching the front of the coffee shop, and Nara, you'll be on the other motorbike.
My goal today is to find out if there are children being kept in a house somewhere.
You're going to be on your own. You won't have any backup teams or all that, so you're happy to do that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
He means there will be surveillance teams, but he won't be back at HQ coordinating because of his funding meeting.
Any questions? Oh, awesome.
It's a big risk doing it without Steve.
Just remember, just keep the lights in.
But it's too late to back out now.
Fuel on the bikes. Off we go.
I'm meeting Rithi at a well-known tourist place called Cafe Corner.
Cafe Corner is just over there. It's like a 50-metre walk. I'm going to park here, put on the undercover cameras, and then from that point on, we're undercover. And it's go time.
I'm really nervous, hence the constant need for water.
Hey, Rithi, where are you? I'm here. Where are you, inside or outside? Hold your hand up. Ah! How are you? Yeah. Everything's good? Yes. Okay.
It's strange to meet him face to face and to see him smiling. All I can think about is the allegations of those kids locked away somewhere.
Do you remember me?
Not very well.
Really?
Yeah, many teams come to my place.
I have to act completely normal on the outside, but inside there's a million thoughts going on.
So how do you have my phone number?
Oh, you know, when I was looking for the orphanage, you were on Facebook. You have an orphanage now?
No.
So what happened?
And they put the limit of the amount of orphanage in Cambodia.
Well, that certainly isn't true.
Okay.
Like we are supporting them in community
Oh, right, in the communities they came from?
Yeah.
If he knows where the kids are, it doesn't look like I'm going to get it out of him.
So now you are with your model, or?
Yeah, I have a tuk-tuk, I'll call him.
You can call him wait, and then you can get on my model and to visit my my temporary place.
Temporary place? Is he saying what I think he's saying?
I have some kids with me, but I don't know which one that you are finding.
He is saying it.
So how many children are there?
Now, from the small to adult, 24.
24, okay.
He's saying he has 24 kids back at a temporary house and he's offering to take me there.
If you know my information, and then I would like you to keep silently with them.
And now he's asking me to stay quiet about it.
I think we should go, huh? Because it's getting dark.
It's not a good idea for me to go anywhere with him alone, but I still don't have an address, and this might be the only opportunity to get it.
I'm actually going to his house.
1 second. Just make sure that he understands, okay? Data.
He thinks I'm calling my tuk-tuk driver, but...
He's taking me to the orphanage. It's a secret orphanage. He's got it. So tell these guys they better be right behind me, because if I get lost, then I'm in big trouble, okay?
Nada, the Sabora is about to move. It's the guys that are watching him. Can you ring them and make sure that they're going to follow him? Because he's going to take him to the other orphanage. Are they following him? You don't know. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so what we need to do, let's drive past Cafe Corner.
With no Steve back at HQ, communications have already broken down. The surveillance teams are out of contact.
Sabor's not in there. Okay, so what we need to do, we need to find out where the surveillance team are, because Sabor is all by himself, alone with this man, which is not good.
I'm not used to it. Thank you.
I'm not sure where he's taking me, but it seems like he's heading out of town. I'm starting to get worried. I can't see any surveillance behind me, and he doesn't look like stopping. I think I've made a huge mistake coming with him.
How far? Just from there? Yeah, I'll have to turn, but I'm maybe in front of. You have to turn in front of that? Yeah. Your house is down there? Yeah. Okay.
As he turns into this laneway, I realise I need to do something fast. But I've left it too late. He's still winding through the back alleyways. And that's when I realise Rithi is worried about surveillance. Suddenly he takes off. We start zipping through all these streets. He's trying to lose any tail. And I realise he must have, because I can't see our follow bikes anywhere. Then he starts to come to a stop.
Here?
If this is the place the kids are, then I have an address. Now I just need to figure out how to get away. And it's at that point, my watch camera finally runs out. Unbeknownst to me, one of the surveillance bikes has managed to stay on our tail. The camera on his bike is still recording. You can see me and Rithi outside his house. I make a last-ditch attempt to get away.
I think I dropped something. You see my passport? You see my passport? Did you see it? It must have dropped out up there. check up here. I'll call you if I find it. Can you wait?
I can see the surveillance bike and I just want to jump on and race off. But what if Rithi sees me?
I have the house.
I take out my mobile and turn on the camera. My heart is racing because I know Rithi is behind me. And when I turn the corner, Peck's surveillance bike is up ahead. I secure the data from the watch camera and make a break for it.
Quick.
Peck drives like crazy in case Rithi is following us. And finally,
We're out of potential danger. We found the place. We left that guy behind. And now we're on the road home. Woohoo!
we have a location. Now we just need to get those kids out of there before Rithi gets a chance to move them. The next morning, Rithi still hasn't called, so he's probably gone to ground.
From where we were yesterday morning, where we were pretty much chasing our tail, spinning around a teacup, to on the phone, meeting him, getting taken to a centre or a house or whatever it is. Good job, mate. Excellent.
Thank you.
But the job's not done yet.
There's CFC, and where's the place? Here.
The investigators have set up surveillance to get evidence for the government to authorise a raid that'll be conducted by the police and SISHA.
And if he has got children in there, what's the next?
We'd be suggesting to them to get some urgent action taken pretty quick.
The investigators have it under control. So I head out to clear my head after the craziness of the past few days. It's been a huge effort to catch one guy, and I wonder if it's all a bit futile. But I guess that comes back to what Steve said about bullies. If you don't stand up to them, they never stop, and more will spring up. There is a bully running rampant here, and one way of dealing with it is to put the corrupt operators in jail. But that won't stop the orphanage tourism that fuels the business. There are legitimate orphanages in Cambodia, but they would never let their children be tourist attractions. So when the major child protection agencies are calling for the practice to end, it's time to listen. The best way we can help is to get the message out. And every time someone says, there must be some good in this, remember, if you're an orphanage tourist, you are not helping the kids. You are helping the bully. Next time on Head First, Australians are addicted to porn.
I would go online and be there all night.
And it's reaching epidemic levels.
Pornography creates a need for stimulation that one human being cannot gratify.
So when relationships are on the brink...
Put her through hell. I really have put her through hell.
How do you fight it?
I deserve to be with someone that loves me.
And which of these couples will survive?
If she said she wasn't going to webcam, I'd probably still be with her.
Probably.
Yes.
It's interesting.